Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. And I was out here working in the woods a little bit, looking at a new finished style shelter that I want to play with a little bit. And I had a few tools out here that were just in the back of my four-wheeler that I use every once in a while to do different types of trail maintenance and things like that. And they're really tools that I don't worry enough about to think about taking them in every night. Sometimes they sit in this four-wheeler for a week at a time. And it got me to thinking that, those tools still do the same job that my more expensive tools do. They just didn't cost as much. And I think that that's something that we kind of forget about in today's bushcraft and survival genre, or in this community in general, is that we get hung up on the expense of the newest shiny tool. And that's not to say that it's not good to have newer tools, because newer things generally come with different advantages depending on the quality of the item that you buy and the manufacturer you buy it from. But it still doesn't necessarily mean that something that's older and less expensive will not do the job. And the way I liken that to things is, and I'm going to show you three quick examples here in a minute of tools that you might think about buying something that's new. And if you go into, let's just say, my garage, and you looked at the tools that I have for working on a vehicle, you're going to see some Craftsman in there. You're going to see some mixed matched stuff that's been bought at yard sales and flea markets and things like that. And most of those tools in there are not real expensive tools. If you walked into the shop of a professional mechanic, he's going to have, Snap-on or Mac, and every tool is going to be fairly matched set from an expensive manufacturer of quality tools that are guaranteed for life, because he's making his living with those tools. He's using those tools every single day of his life. And so he's investing in his own future or his own well-being as a craftsman. And I think that that's kind of where we miss things in this community. I have expensive tools, no question about that. And it's not because I necessarily think that they're that much better a tool. It's for reasons of they may be guaranteed for life. They may be a different type of metal. They may be a different grind. They may be something that is more user-friendly in the long run because it's been manufactured differently over time. There are lots and lots of reasons for buying new tools or more expensive tools. But it comes down to, will a tool do the job? And if it will, and you don't have the need to buy that most expensive thing, then why buy it? So let's just look at a couple examples real quick. Now, I did a video the other day on shovels. We talked about lots of military, different types of military shovels. We talked about the cold steel shovel. We talked about the folding and trenching tools and all that stuff. And this is just a cut-off, old forged in the U.S. shovel. Just a garden shovel, but it's a smaller size spade. So it's not much bigger than the ones we talked about the other day, but this one cost about $5 at a flea market. And because I was choosy and picky about what I bought, I made sure that I got one that was made in the USA. I made sure I got one that was forged. It's got good pins going into it in two different places to hold the ferrule onto the handle. And it's a forged shovel. So if something tears up on it, I'll just have to drill it out and replace the handle. But at the same time, for the money, it gives me all the shovel I could ever need, and it will do anything that any of those shovels we talked about the other day will do, albeit a little bit heavier. And again, so I invest in something else because it's lighter in weight, or because I don't want to carry the heavy thing all the time. But for something that is usable, will it do the same job? It absolutely will. And it didn't cost near as much money. And it's probably better quality than some of those tools, to be honest with you. So it stays in my four-wheeler quite a bit. Here is a good example of an axe. And you can see that the handle hasn't even been oiled very well in this lately because it's been laying out so much. It's got a leather mask on it that's fairly stiff because it needs to be oiled as well. But this is just a plumb boy's axe. It's not real well taken care of. It is plenty sharp. It will do the job. It will split firewood. It will cut down a sapling. It will build shelters. It'll do anything it needs to do. It's got a fairly short, probably a 26, 28 inch handle on it. It's got the measurement marks on the back. But again, this was a flea market axe that cost about $20, as opposed to the axe that I carry almost every day, which is the Council Tool Woodcraft axe, which is more like a $150 axe. Now, this axe is a little better quality. It's newer manufactured. It's guaranteed for life. It's got a little bit shorter handle on it. It's got a little different grind on it. It's got a hardened pole. So for me, as a professional survival instructor and bushcraft instructor, it pays for me to buy the more expensive item, but I can get the job done every day, all day, with a less expensive tool if I need to, and so could you. So now let's talk about saws real quick, okay? This saw is made out of scrap 2x4s. I made this buck saw probably 6 years ago on a video for my channel. It's got the same paracord it had 6 years ago. It has exactly the same blade, Baco blade, which is the most expensive part of the whole saw, is the $10 blade. It has the same nails that were cut off to hold the blade in. And everything is the same, and it's not even been oiled for at least 2 or 3 years. And it's been sitting outside down at the shelter at my school for students to use to buck up firewood. It works just as good as it did the day it was made. It works just as good as any saw that I would carry now, whether that be a Nick Stoll folding buck saw, or whether that be some type of a Silky folding saw, or a Spring Creek Manufacturing folding buck saw. Any of those saws, this works just as good. Costs a lot less money, but will get the job done in a necessity. Is it as good a tool as the Nick Stoll folding buck saw? Of course not. It's not made out of a hard wood. It's not near as aesthetically pleasing. It's not as comfortable in the hand because it's just made out of square stock. But when you're talking about a saw, the blade is what really counts. As long as the framing is stable, or the material the handle's made out of is stable, the blade's what counts. It's got a Baco blade in it, and that blade will cut anything and everything all day long as much as it needs to cut. So I guess the moral of this whole story in a 7-minute video boils down to buy what you can afford, but don't think that you have to have the best of the best to get the job done, because if you have the skill and you know how to take care of a tool, most things that you can find out there will work for you if you know where to look. And that's the key to it. You're not going to find the perfect thing just walking down the street sometime at the first flea market or the first Goodwill or the first thrift store that you stop at. You're not necessarily going to find the perfect tool. But if you look over time and you're frugal, you'll find things that will do in a job for you that don't cause you to spend as much money. So don't get hung up, I guess, is the moral of the story, on I have to have this newest, greatest thing. Because if it's not something you're going to use all the time, every day, and you don't need the best, then you don't need the best. It's that simple. And so while I do videos on different products, and I do sell products in my online store, and I have an Amazon store, and I develop new products all the time, lightweight, stainless steel, titanium, different tools, different knives, different profiles, different grinds, and all of those things are good. And if you're using them a lot and you want to invest money in something better, or something that is more modern, or something that's got a lifetime guarantee, then you buy those things. If not, you don't have to. That's the beauty of the outdoors, is that there's really no wrong answer as long as you're getting the job done. So anyway, just a quick rant today on tools and the cost of tools and what tools you really need to get things done. You know, if you've got a good belt knife and you've got a saw and axe, and you've got, especially if you've got a shovel around camp, there ain't a whole lot you can't get done with those tools, let me tell you. So just think about that. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.